Welcome to Property Quorum. Welcome once again to Property Quorum, the place where we discuss and talk about things that affect people within the property industry. And I am very pleased to say, as per usual, I am accompanied by stalwarts Hamish McLay of Search and Convey, Juliet Baboolal of gunnercooke, and of course Chris Gilsenan of Route Home. And we have a special guest. I'm going to bring him straight to the stage without further ado. Chris Britto of Bridgemore Capital. Thank you very much for taking time out of your busy day. As usual, we have a hot topic to discuss. Today's one is, as usual, hopefully going to peel the scab off and poke at the wound a little bit. In challenging times, what's the biggest challenge in conveyancing today? And as usual, I'm going to throw Hamish straight under the bus.
One of the discoveries that we all sort of make, that whilst continuous sort of work in the wonderful world of conveyancing establishes the fact that there are so many things that can possibly go wrong, there are some occasional ones that just come up and just go, Choop. Now, I'm very fortunate in many respects because I don't hit the complications that many other people do, because it's background work that I do, and the biggest challenge I have is with councils, and it's with councils who purposely go out of their way to be awkward. They don't have to be, because some information I can get in 24 hours, in less than 24 hours, in 24 minutes, in less than 24 minutes. Yet others, we wait and wait. So that's my biggest challenge. There are a few others, but that we'll put that down as my biggest challenge, and I'll let the others sort of tell about this, because theirs are so many and varied. I'm fortunate in life to have such few challenges and to actually sort of work my way through.
Well, Chris, welcome, by the way. I thought the biggest challenge at the moment was computer says no.
Yeah, pretty much. I think for my space, I work with obviously investors and developers day in and day out financing their projects. We all know that development finance projects are a slow burner, from planning with councils all the way through to legals themselves. If we're talking about the problems with councils, it's anything from S106 payments to still payments and all of the above. I think, every single council in England has got a different rhyme or reason behind any kind of financials that they wish to impose on developers that are building out their projects. I believe Chris is a developer himself and probably knows these challenges. But yeah, for me, I think that they're the biggest challenges at the moment, is that every council's got a different rhyme or reason behind what financial penalties they want to impose on developers to improve the infrastructure in their given area.
So these financial penalties are a good thing, are they, Chris?
Well, I mean, they're a good thing for the infrastructure of each individual council within England. However, there's never really, in my opinion anyway, any kind of quantifiable difference between one council to the other. I see it all the time. My business partner does mainly the development finance within our business, and you'll have one developer that's suddenly got a £200,000 seal payment compared to one down the road that's got a £75,000 seal payment. So, maybe Chris, as a developer himself, can kind of elaborate from his kind of personal experience here. But yeah, I really don't understand the rhyme or reason behind these.
Chris, you're up. Is there any rhyme or reason behind anything that these councils do?
No. The good old Section 106 council bribe. Yes, okay. I'm not meant to say that, am I? It's not meant to be a council bribe. But...
Did you say the B word? I think you did.
Pull from air.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. I must have misheard. So are these? Is that the bane of your life?
We do a lot less new build development, so Section 106 and SILs don't really impact us that much, thankfully. I'm aware of a lot of colleagues that they do impact, and they are ridiculous. But again, we always talk about team and having the right planning consultants and the on your side can help alleviate some of those additional fees, shall we say?
Well, fees, bribes, whatever you want to call them, to one side. What is the thing that most irritates you about this process then, at the moment, right now?
About councils or conveyancing?
Conveyancing.
The biggest challenge that we've got in conveyancing is actually buyers and sellers not being prepared. Slow down the process, and not to bash the legal profession too much, but there are some high street solicitors or the sausage factories that we've previously alluded to on different casts that, again, they slow down the process. So yeah, having people who are aware of what the process is, how long it should take, all the documentation, all the prep that goes into it, that will help accelerate the process substantially. My biggest bugbear out of the entire conveyancing process.
Here we go now.
Management companies, leaseholder management companies. Oh my God, we had one transaction that ran nearly 18 months. The leasehold management company changed hands, got sacked twice. So 3 different ones that were in there. And all of them, for whatever reason, just refused point blank to respond in a timely fashion to our requests.
I thought it was just good manners.
They had none.
Chris, I'm obviously very naive. Juliet, obviously, all legal people keep their clients up to date and explain to them everything they need to know before they get involved. Is that not the case?
It should be the case, but you're looking at the quality of the legal advisor, and clearly, week in, week out, we're talking about sort of, the fact that there's this disparity between the high street firms, the sausage factories that will just give you the mash and potatoes. And if there's any complexity in there, you literally will not get anything out of them because you've paid for £900, whatever it is you've paid them for, and they're just there to give you, the bare minimum. The reality is conveyancing is challenging because there's so many moving parts, as we previously said, and there's a lack of transparency. So if you come to me and I'm a high street firm, I'm going to tell you in my terms and conditions, this is what you get and there is no more. So the question is, as a legal professional, do I owe you some more? Do I need to explain, the complexities and things, or do I have the capacity to do that? Because often you find that in these high street firms, you don't even have solicitors behind the conveyor belt. It's sometimes people who've done a property course that are just doing, things that the computer tells them to do. So they have this software that will say, okay, have you sent out the contracts? And they'll build out the contracts for you. But the person sending the contracts out haven't got the legal capacity or the knowledge or the experience to say, well, actually, this doesn't fit this scenario. It just doesn't work here. And so I think there needs to be more transparency. And that's my biggest bugbear. So if you're looking at the local authority, well, how are you calculating this SIL? How are you calculating the Section 106? If it applies for this development and it doesn't for that, how does that work? It can't just be someone roll out of bed today and decided these are my calculations and I'm a law unto myself and you are going to comply with what I say. You've got the land registry, you send something in there, they take forever to register stuff. Where's the transparency in that? Tell me who's dealing with it and give me an accurate timescale so that anyone affected in the chain, whether I'm selling or refinancing and I've got a lender coming in, they then know what sort of timescales they're working at. So my biggest thing in terms of all of the elements within conveyancing is the lack of transparency and perhaps even the lack of accountability. Because if you're involved in the process, you need to be accountable.
Wow. Well, sorry, Juliet, who rattled your cage this morning? My goodness. She's on one, and quite rightly so. Hamish, these people are not talking to each other properly. It does seem there's a lack of accountability and dare I say, a lack of communication.
Absolutely. And I think that, just about everybody's mentioned it, this disparity between councils, that somehow you are expected to understand how this lunatic council has devised a particular way of doing things compared to the other one.
Lunatic council, is that the technical term?
Yes. A prime example, we've heard it mentioned but a couple of times today already, the idea of this SIL, the community infrastructure level, that was meant to be introduced from about sort of 2012 onwards. And what has happened with anything our government's involved with, it took so long to sort of unravel that councils that didn't bother to get there by about 2019 have decided, oh, we won't bother now. So you've got this, so you've got your 315 councils, but there is different ways, because some people have the community infrastructure level, the SILs, and the others have the Section 106s. And sometimes the two of them are mixed together, which is absolutely great. But somehow you're meant to be the wizard in all of this stuff. I mean, I moan about building regulations, but I mean, still, and what's happened, what makes it even worse about SILs, because a lot of work has been transferred from the very remarkably poor councils now, because they're not getting the money that they need to survive. They're getting work taken away from them by the land registry, who aren't doing so well anyway in registering sort of stuff. And they can't extract all the information about the CILs onto the reports. So you can't get the information from them. You've got to go back to the count. So a mess. And it's largely because people don't speak to each other, as we've said before. Some of these guys have decided, right, like doctors, we don't need to speak to people any longer. We don't need to answer the phone. We can do it all by email.
Oh my gosh. I have certainly thrown a cat amongst pigeons. It can open worms everywhere. Chris, what the hell is going on?
It's music to my ears that everyone's on the same page. And, you know, if we could, as Juliet
we're on the same page. If it was down to Juliet, we'd be setting fire to it too.
Well, it's not a bad shout. Set fire to it and start again. But yeah, I think if solicitors had a better understanding from the councils, and then that filtered through to the developers or people building the new developments ground up, then, you know, it would make things a lot easier, a lot more transparent, and a lot less frustration for everyone involved. I mean, away from council bashing and kind of seal payments and all that jazz, is there a major reason why there is such a disparity between the level of service from solicitor to solicitor? Because obviously, I may open up another can of worms here, and I don't want to do solicitor.
No.
Obviously, it's the problem with conveyancing.
This is the place to open the cans. Come on now.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've mentioned it to Juliet before as well. You know, we deal with very fast transactions with our bridging finance, and then, as I mentioned earlier, a lot slower with the development finance. You can start recommending solicitors to clients that want to get bridging finance. They say, can you recommend me a solicitor? And historically, I've always gone, oh yeah, of course, I know this company, they're fantastic, communication is unrivaled. And then lo and behold you recommend, and then service goes. And then I get clients come back to me and are very much, well, you recommended them, this is your fault. I'm going to miss the auction deadline, or I'm going to miss the seller's deadline. They're going to pull it. I'm going to lose the deal. I mean, and then intertwined with that, if I then try and get involved with maybe some other solicitors, not to put two problems on the table here, but why is it some law firms purely rely on the paralegal to do everything?
Ah, now that's an old one, isn't it?
Yeah. But yeah, I'm not sure what everyone else's thoughts are. Again, I'm going to go back to Chris again, because he probably does high volume as a customer, and it'd be good to know if you've seen any disparity between different law firms, or if you purposely moved from one law firm to the other because of that very reason.
Multiple times.
Chris, do you trust anybody out there in the legal profession? Of course, save Juliet.
Of course, yeah. We're doing some great work with Juliet. She's doing some great work for us. Yeah, just like many trades, the what you're mentioning, Chris, it happens very consistently with contractors. So there's only a proportion of contractors that are good to start with anyway. So just like any industry, there's an element of roguish behavior. So trying to find those good ones is a challenge. And then what happens is that because everyone finds out that they're good, they get oversubscribed. They don't necessarily focus on growing the business, rather they're the center of their business. And we all know what happens when that term. So they seem to go in, contractors specifically seem to go in 3-year waves, 3-year cycles, if they don't break the pattern. So yeah, it's very challenging for us, and it's certainly one of our growth pains as we've been scaling and growing, like actually helping contractors scale with us and grow their businesses and focus on their business. Like any business, I guess there are growing pains there. Similarly, we've had bad experiences with solicitors, but also it comes down to, we do recommendations for our clients, and often it comes down to price, but price from a naive perspective, thinking that price should be the driving factor, when actually it's definitely not. We've mentioned repeatedly on this show that you buy cheap and you buy twice, basically. So yeah, you really do get what you pay for.
Juliet, are you and your kin spending all your time sunning yourself while the paralegal does all the work?
Well, you can still sun yourself and multitask and, do the work. I tell you, I'm sunning myself. My clients won't know that. Their work wouldn't suffer as a result of it. But really, you shouldn't oversell. And this oversubscription point is a real valid point. And I agree with both Chris's here. If you don't have capacity to do the work, then don't take it on or hire some more solicitors or whatever. But if you haven't got capacity, it's going to show. And it's a reputational thing. I often say, I act for lenders. I often say, look, I'm part of your brand. And if you're selling a bridge or you're selling a fast deal, then I can't be the cause of it slowing down. And that's the reality of it. We're in a culture where we're in a marketing culture. And if I'm going out there and meeting clients and I'm saying, yeah, I can get your work done, blah, 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 and I'm going to do your work. And then when I get the instruction, I'm giving it to a paralegal. And quite frankly, paralegals haven't lived. So they just don't have that knowledge. They're going to have to come back to you. There's certain things that they can do, and there's certain things that they can sort of churn out. But the meat of it, they can't. And really, I don't agree with the paralegal model, the solicitors, the firms that do that. I think you lose business really quickly when you do that. And you open yourself up to a lot of PI claims. So the reality is, I often say to people, don't sell and then you can't deliver. Do what you say you're going to do on the tin, so that, you keep people like the both Chris's, happy. I've been doing some work with Chris G. And, it's one of those things where, for me, it's the client, you give them a hand-holding experience. But I know what my role is as a solicitor. Now, if you were to say to me, give me some tax structuring advice, or I want to create a trust, etc., then that's another professional. So, you need to know what role your professional plays, but equally you need to deliver on that role. And that for me it's a personal thing. So when you go to solicitors, it depends on that particular solicitor's personality and them on a personal level. But I from my perspective, I will not sell you that I'm going to do your work and then pass it on to someone else. That is not going to happen. And I think that's what it boils down to, that personal integrity.
I think those are fighting words. I think we should be all close to finishing. Before we do, I'm going to pass the baton over to Hamish for our last words. But I think our strapline should now be paralegals haven't lived. Hamish, would you take us home, please?
Right. One of the sad aspects about the way conveyancing has gone since the law changed in the early noughties is to enable a number of people outside of the legal profession to carry out conveyancing. And sadly, that has actually determined certainly cost in terms of much of what is going on. And as a consequence of cost, these multiple sort of paneled conveyor type conveyancing that goes on, they're just taking on loads and loads of work. And unfortunately, with inexperienced people carrying out, they're trying to work on the basis that everything is the same. Every house, every flat, every mansion, they're all exactly the same. And if it's exactly the same, you could possibly do that, but they aren't the same, nor are the people who are involved in these transactions. Everything about it's so very, very different. But unfortunately, because they're working with people who are limited in their experience, and all they can do is straightforward conveyancing, there's going to be a challenge. And sadly, with the legal profession, I do feel for, because many conveyancers, many very, very highly qualified conveyancers, are tripping away. They're moving away. they're getting into something else, or they're even retiring out of the legal profession. As a consequence of which, there's a shortage of people of the quality that we really require to help push them through the way that Juliet speaks of, the way that you're highly experienced and seriously motivated, because they're motivated on behalf of the clients, as opposed to motivated in the number of transactions they can complete. It makes such a difference.
I'm honoured to be surrounded by property professionals who seem to bloody care. I dare I say it, not all of them do. Headline for tomorrow. I have to thank every one of you. Of course, Juliet Baboolal of gunnercooke, Hamish McLay of Search Convey, Chris Britto, thank you very much for making it, from Bridgemore Capital, and of course, our esteemed colleague Chris Gilsenan of Route Home. Now, we're here every Thursday, 10 o'clock. Later on today, you should see me and Chris go to it. Chris unveils his latest bugbear, but also on Friday, Property Matters with Hamish McLay at around 2 o'clock. So until that time, I wish you all a satisfactory end to the week, and of course, great mental health. Bye-bye all.